Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of Flutter on Air Talks. Today I will chat with Scott. Scott is Flutter developer, speaker, and co-founder of the Flutter Community. Hey Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Yeah, me too. Finally, the summer is coming, and
Yes.
I'm so looking forward to it.
Here we never know. The trees are beginning to look beautiful and green, which means we're due for one more big snowstorm. We'll probably get a meter of snow.
Yeah, that's nice. I would like to talk about the Flutter community.
Okay.
How did you learn about it, or what do you think about it?
Um, well, actually, the way the Flutter community actually started was there were a number of us in the old Gitter chat, which is still very much alive and well, very active. We like to joke that it's the single-threaded monstrosity. There's one thread. There's only a general channel for about 10,000 people.
Oh, that's
This,
amazing.
yeah, this can get really interesting. So, but back then there were probably only about 70 of us or so who were active. And I asked a few people, where are the forums? Where do people get together on Zoom or something like that to meet? And the answer that I got was, well, we don't do that. And the thing I said right away was, well, that's going to change because I had come from other communities where I had all the support of those type of things. So I had lived without that support and then I lived with that support. And after you have it, the idea of having to do things without it is just not acceptable anymore. It changes your standards. So I looked around and I had helped build communities in the past. So I said, okay, we'll just do that here. And it took a while. It took a while to get some people involved, but Jeroen was started out with the Flutter GitHub, Flutter Community GitHub, and then myself and Simon and Ahmed, we were doing Zoom. And Nash came along and started the Flutter Community Medium. And it all just kind of grew from there. I mean, we were all involved maybe by October of 2017, and people have just stuck with it, and it's grown and grown. Um, so yeah, that's over time we've gotten more people who were involved, and it keeps going.
That sounds amazing. And by the way, how many members does the community have right now? It's like I would guess 20K plus.
If you want to count it that way, the Flutter Community Slack, which any developer always has Slack open, whether you want to or not. Let's take a quick look here. The announcements channel in the Flutter Community Slack has 13,600 members.
Whoa, that's a high,
So
super high
that's
number.
in the Slack.
Oh, that's nice. You are also a member of a GDG, right?
Yes, I run GDG Cleveland in Cleveland, Ohio.
How long are you a member, or when did you join the GDG community?
GDG,
Yeah.
I started out with GDG almost 2 years ago, not quite 2 years ago. That has been getting people to come out in person has been a lot harder than doing Flutter remotely because around here people don't really do much mobile or really anything with a UI very much. The area I am in, basically blockchain is king. So everyone's doing back end, everyone's doing blockchain, or they're doing .NET. But when you talk to people about putting together a layout for a UI, they look at you and go, "What?"
Yeah, the blockchain is like literally everywhere these days.
Oh, well, and I mean, it's actually the Cleveland area is famous for it. These people are fantastic with algorithms, but they don't know what an aspect ratio is. Don't try to talk to them about material design. Just talk to them about calculus.
Yeah, I see. For how long do you code? Because in Flutter, you are like since 2017.
How long have I coded? Well, probably I'd say March or so of 2017. I started out with Android then, and I got involved in Flutter shortly after that because I noticed it and I just never looked back. Before that, I was doing repairs, technical repairs on usually production machinery or other machines, and a lot of those were computer controlled. So I had exposure that way. And when I was in the military, I was an electronics technician. And I don't really want to talk about my age, but let's just say that I was formally trained in everything all the way back down to not assembly, but what's beneath assembly. The hard coded instructions in a chip that you can't change. It's those things that are run when you use assembly to do like an IO instruction or a bit shift. Yet the stuff we were trained in is the lower level below that allows you to make a bit shift. And we had to know that because we had to troubleshoot the computer to the point where we had to figure out which chip was bad and remove it with a soldering iron and replace it with another chip. No one does that anymore.
I see. And why did you start with Flutter? Because you said you started on Android. You started on Android. And why did you move to Flutter?
Honestly, when I saw Flutter, I saw a couple of possibilities. For one, I had never seen anything that was cross-platform before. So I thought that was a fantastic idea, being able to write once and release in multiple places. One of the nice things about Flutter, when I had been playing around as a hobby, I used to do a bunch with C#. I was particularly writing for the old Microsoft Speech API. I wrote an assistant that you talked to and it talked back that was a lot more fun than Cortana. In short, I had been playing around with it enough that it would look at anything you said, and then it would run through a switch of about 20 possible responses. And depending on what you said, if you were nice to it, its attitude went up. If you were not nice to it, its attitude went down. And that also weighted the response. So it got to the point where if you were mean enough, it just wouldn't do anything and would tell you to just go away, which was kind of fun. So when I saw Flutter, I'm looking at Dart and I'm reading this and I'm going, this is C# without the words public or private. You know, it's almost the same. So I felt very much at home. And also kind of as a joke, anyone who is an Android developer knows what I mean when you need a variable and the way that you get to this variable is by da 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 dot 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 da 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 dot. I mean, I have seen them 3 lines high.
Yeah.
Seriously. So I looked at the Flutter code, the Dart code, and it was just so nice and easy to read. And I just never wanted to go back.
My reason is kind of similar because I've seen Filip Hráček's talk about Flutter like half a year ago. And I was like, hey, this is like pretty amazing. You can have an application for Android and iOS with the same code. So I started learning it. But by the way, Filip Hráček is like running his game. Yeah, how is it called? It's like Knights of the San Francisco.
I have seen him working on that a couple of times. It is a lot of fun. Philip's a fun guy. He really is.
And by the way, he's
very
also
tall.
Yeah. By the way, he's also from the Czech Republic as me.
Yes. Yes. So, but if you've ever met him, you can hurt your neck. I mean,
And maybe just a quick step back to the Flutter community topic. Do you know, for example, how many girls like code in Flutter? Because
that
like I have
is,
seen a few girl Flutter GDEs and the
oh
Flutterist
yeah,
is gone.
absolutely. That is something that we have been trying to figure out, and it's very difficult to get a hard number on it. We have kind of scrolled through a couple of Slacks, some of them private, some of them public, to try to get a feel for how many women are involved. Right now, our best guess is somewhere between 10 and 15% of the people we're seeing in Slacks are women. Now, does that mean that that is a proper representation? We have no idea. That's the problem. What I can tell you, if you talk to Ahmed Abu Lahab, he is one of the very first Flutter GDEs. He is in Alexandria, Egypt, not Virginia. And he has given so many talks, it's crazy. And a lot of the talks he was giving in the Middle East were almost all women in the audience, which that in itself was amazing. So, to see that in Egypt and in other countries in that region with the audiences being mostly women was really cool.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I have a child right here, a four-legged fuzzy child. Go lay down for a little
I
bit.
saw it on the Twitter.
Go lay down. Daddy will be back. Anyway.
And do you have some like ideas how to involve generally more women?
We have talked about that a lot, and we've also talked about it with the Flutteristas. And one of the problems is you don't want to go out and just try to get women just for the sake of getting women. It doesn't work like that. What you do want to do is make the whole world of Flutter somewhere that's safe. Because the problem is there are women always trying to come out into coding. Okay, it always is happening. But the problem that we run into is that they come out and they run into things that make them feel that it's not a healthy place to be, that it's toxic. And I don't mean Flutter, I mean coding in general. So they run into men who clearly cannot get a date. And their attitude proves it. And their attitude is probably why they can't get a date. So they start trying to treat women like, oh, you shouldn't be here, or, oh, hey, honey, your profile looks hot, and all this other garbage. And so the women don't want to come out and try to seriously work on coding because they keep getting this not serious garbage thrown their way. So the best thing to do is to make the world of Flutter safe, to where they're treated just like anybody else. They don't have to be treated extra special. They don't have to be treated extra nice. But would you message me saying, hey, baby? Well, then don't do it to them, moron. And that's what makes it safe. And once you do that, they'll come out, they'll try it, and they'll stay. Women are coming out and trying to code everywhere. The question is, do the rest of the people in the community give them the kind of environment where they feel it's safe to stay?
Yeah, I like totally agree with that. That's a nice point of view. The number of Flutter GDEs and especially women GDEs, it's crazy.
Oh, that's, yeah. Well, there's May in Saudi Arabia. There's Katarina Sherman. Good God, my brain is blanking. I can't name hardly any GDEs right now. One of the original ones was Nietzsche. Nietzsche, you know who you are. Most people know who Nietzsche is by her first name. I don't even want to try to say her last name. But Nietzsche has been responsible for a couple of small things. She was one of the leaders of a small GDG called New York City. Just a little thing. And actually, last I heard, she was in charge of developer relations, all of developer relations for Microsoft Azure. So incredible lady, PhD, just wow. But yes, there are a lot of them in Flutter, and we're trying to open it up to make it somewhere safe for ladies to be, so there can be a lot more.
Yeah. Do you have like some data about general like localization, Flutter localization? Like for example, how many Flutter community members are from the States and from Europe?
We don't really know numbers, but there are some pretty clear trends. First of all, the United States was lagging behind very badly because as an American, I say this, and a lot of other Americans will know, there is an attitude over here that everything is already the best and we don't need to change. And it really slows things down as far as progress, because you need to really shake people hard to get them to realize, yes, we do need to change. We do need to move on with newer technology. At the same time, you cannot, as we say in English, you can't swing a dead cat. I don't know why we say it that way, but we do. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting a Flutter developer and a Flutter job in Berlin. Berlin, Germany is just insane. London is also getting quite a bit. The entire Middle East region, around especially Egypt, Libya, and now Saudi Arabia, Dubai. Flutter is really taking off there. Flutter is huge in India. What a lot of people in the Western world don't, well, and when I say the West, I mean just about everywhere except China.
Uh-huh.
What people outside of China don't realize is how huge Flutter is in China. And when I was at Google I/O in 2018, I talked to some people on the team, and I learned some things I did not know. First of all, that the Chinese Flutter people, the Chinese Flutter community, they were doing things with Flutter that were going to take us 9 months to catch them. Okay, not only are we not the bestest and the greatest, we're behind. And we need to work hard and fast. There was talk of an effort to try to translate Chinese articles and documentation. Sorry about that. To translate some of their articles and documentation into English so that we could better benefit from it. Unfortunately, everybody got very busy and hasn't had a chance to do that to this point. But another place that Flutter is really huge is Africa. And that one of the reasons that it's huge down there is that people in a lot of places in the world, and especially in Africa, phones are ridiculously expensive. Okay. And a new phone can cost you more than a car. So people cannot afford to change their phones. And so if you can write apps for that older hardware, then people are going to buy your apps. And the developers down in Africa are well aware of that, and they're taking full advantage of Flutter's ability to be released on everything going back to KitKat and iPhone 6. Excuse me just a moment. Karma, down. Down. Good girl. Good down. Karma, stay. That is the world famous Karma. She is a rescued pit bull, American pit bull terrier. Unfortunately, she was abused very badly, including being shot with a gun. So, yeah, we try to let her do almost anything she wants because she deserves it at this point in life. But sometimes you just have to tell her to be quiet.
Yeah, I read it on your Twitter.
Yeah, I do other things besides code, believe it or not.
Yeah. And like, I guess generally the Flutter is like getting more famous and famous because like last year, I look for some Flutter jobs in Czechia. It was like hard to find something. But this year it's like almost like everyone is talking about the Flutter.
Oh, I know. And it's right now we are at the end of April 2021. And I probably have 6 different job interviews at various stages, all going at the same time because I'm between things right now. And we will see how this shakes out. With any luck, I will have something before next Friday. But which one, I'm not sure what it's going to be.
Yeah, so good luck with that.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Generally, like the Flutter 2, it's like amazing. Have you tried something like more complex with it?
You mean with the new Flutter and stable, Flutter 2
Yeah.
itself? Excuse me. There we go. Get that out of the way. Flutter 2 really, I work in the dev channel, so we don't really notice numbers. We just notice things that come up. And then after a while, some of them end up in stable, some of them don't. What we're seeing now is Flutter 2, and actually it's a good thing you bring this up because there's an important point to make. With Flutter 2, the main things that we've run into and need to learn is the changes in flat button to text button and raised button to elevated button, and the button styles. The button styles drove me crazy for a little bit, but once I got them figured out, wasn't too bad. But other than that, I mean, it hasn't really changed much. I don't use Navigator 2.0 just as a personal preference. So that has not been a big deal. But all the great things with Flutter 2 that I'm noticing are basically the fact that web has come to stable and that I can now play around with more confidence releasing to desktops, because that's great. Desktop is not actually considered ready to go yet, but it's close enough that during Flutter Engage, they said basically release candidate time, and everyone please see if you can break it and submit issues if you can. Now, the one thing I did want to touch on really quick, and a lot of us are trying to get the word out about this. We're seeing a ton of questions in Slack, Discord, and Stack Overflow saying, I upgraded to Flutter 2 and it broke my code. No, it didn't. Okay, it didn't. What's really going on here, number one, you have to understand the difference between Flutter 2 and Dart 2.12. Flutter 2 is a few new widgets, the ability, the fact that web isn't stable, the fact that you can now start releasing to desktop, not from stable, but you can do it. And it doesn't change anything except if you use a flat button or a raised button, or maybe a few other things, you'll get a little line through it saying that it's deprecated, but your code's going to compile. Okay. Now, you turn around and say, oh, but I'm seeing all this stuff about null this and might not be initialized. And yeah, that's Dart 2.12. That's not Flutter 2. They're completely different things. If you change your minimum Dart SDK version to 2.12 in your PubSpec YAML file, you're going to be forced into null safety. And to avoid that, at least for a while, you can leave the default lower. I believe usually it's, 2.7? Or I'm not sure. But if you go with 2.12 or higher, you're going to have to do null safety. And yes, then you're going to have to start refactoring. But folks, please stop blaming Flutter 2. It's not Flutter 2 that's doing that to you. You probably have upgraded your Flutter and Dart simultaneously, and it makes it look like it's Flutter 2, but actually it's you're upgrading your Dart version is doing it.
How do you miss offline talks and conferences and networking with people?
That's like my favorite part. Well, I told you that I had helped build communities in the past. I've been speaking in front of audiences since I'm getting old. Okay, so I've been speaking in front of audiences since the years had 19 in front of them. So it's been a while. And one of the best parts of all that is you go out to somewhere like when we were speaking at DroidCon London in 2018. Yes, you're in front of 200 or 300 people for 45 minutes. Big deal. Okay. But you spend all day long getting to be eye to eye with them, having conversations because you're standing there in the booth. We worked the Flutter London booth while we were there, and there were 8 of us all in Flutter shirts. And I can't tell you how many times people walked up and thought we were the Flutter team. No, we were not the Flutter team. We're a Flutter community. But it was really great to meet all these people and to talk to them and hear where they were from and hear their ideas. And, oh, I might be able to do this or that with Flutter, or can Flutter do this or that? I even had a few people asking me for a selfie, which was a little hard to get used to. But there's one app that I need to get it back on my phone again. But if you have it on the phone and then you turn, normally you turn and your orientation changes. With this app, it was called Smooth Rotation, and it was just a proof of concept. But as you turn it, the content stays the same, no matter how you turn the phone. The content is always facing up, even with the phone at an angle. So there would be all these people walking by the booth in between talks. Because there wouldn't be many people around during talks, right? But in between talks, everyone's walking back and forth for about 10 or 15 minutes. And I would just put Smooth Rotation on the phone. I'd hold it up in the air and I go like this. And you would always get somebody walking by and they go, it's like, what? And, back then trying to do that in Android would have been brutal. I mean, yes, it's possible, but the way you would have to handle all the transitions was just murderous. And I know Simon had put that together, smooth rotation, in about 90 minutes, about an hour and a half. So that made us a lot of friends, actually. And that's the fun part about being out at these conferences is you show people something and it makes them either say, wow, or it makes them laugh. And you have a good time and you learn so much from the other people there. And it doesn't matter if you're a speaker, you're still learning so much from everybody else there. That doesn't change. And I think the communities are really missing out on that. We're losing a lot of our progress and the things that help us through the learning curve. A lot of that support from the face-to-face is missing because yes, we can do things virtually, but if I'm giving a virtual talk, that's great. But when the talk is over, the talk is over. We don't go out for food and drinks afterwards anymore. We don't stand around out at the cars talking for an hour anymore. And those things are important.
Yeah, that's it. The networking I also definitely miss. And just like I have seen talk about Flutter and Flame from Flutter Europe last year.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been there?
Not to Flutter Europe, unfortunately. I was trying to find some way to get Christoph to bring me in. But the problem, I did Flutter London way back when there were very few people who could speak on Flutter. A little while after that, we reached a point where there were enough people living in Europe who could give talks that they didn't need me anymore. So they didn't need to pay to fly the American over to Europe. Why should you do that? Why should you spend $2,000 US between flying and hotel and food? And no, you can get someone who lives down the street to give the same talk, and they're just as good. So yeah, it's getting harder and harder to get over to Europe, but I will find some excuse.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for your time and for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been an amazing conversation, and thanks for your points of view.
It's just one point of view. You know what they say about opinions. Everybody's got one.
Yeah. Okay, so have a nice day.
You too. Take care. And thanks for having me again.
Yeah, bye. Hey, just one more thing. If you like this episode, feel free to share it on social networks. and don't forget to subscribe. Looking forward to seeing you at the next episode.